Good morning, good afternoon, good evening across the country, around the world. Welcome back to the Kerbal Space Program. We're back here at the Kerbal Space Center. I just completed, well, not just, it was a few days ago for me, but the last thing I did in the game, in this save, was to drive the rover around to the different biomes here and collect as much science as I could from each one. That helps max it out. I might make another rover run off to the grasslands. I think this is the shores, and off to the grassland, or maybe shores is over here. Anyway, there's a few different biomes you can get here. Here you can get lowlands and midlands and highlands and then mountains. Usually for the mountains, though, I actually will make a plane, and they're a little hard to land in the mountains, like a traditional landing, you know, down on that landing gear. But parachutes, radial-mounted parachutes for landing in the mountains, and then you can get some science over there. So that might happen later. But for this episode, we're going to try to get, well, this episode and possibly the next one, we're going to go orbital. So, I've played the game before. I've got about 138 hours, like I said. And I know at this point I'm going to want to upgrade probably both the VAB and the launch pad. And I've got a fair amount of Kerbal bucks, space bucks, whatever, money. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Otherwise, 30. That's going to limit us pretty tight for an orbital trip. We're going to go ahead and upgrade the VAB. And we're going to upgrade the launch pad. That way, the mass is also probably the bigger limit. But having both is nice. Yeah, it looks nice, right? Alright, so we're going to orbit. Oh, and I was looking at the contract. There was one parachute. That's a little slow. No, it was the other one. Ah, the radial mount parachute. This is more reasonable. 3,000 to 10,000? Probably. 260. Once you get below 260 is when you want to launch a parachute anyway. It expires in 1 day. So I'm actually going to take this one. It's not much, but it gives you an advance, more cash, and some science. We'll take that one. It should be pretty easy to do. Usually, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the in-flight, splashdown, in-flight, suborbital trajectory, because those have parameters. Like, that's a really high suborbital trajectory. If you're going that high, you might as well just go to orbit. But we're maxed out anyway. We have the orbit Kerbal, which give us an advance, will give us a fair amount of cash, and will give us some, science and reputation, respect. And this one doesn't expire, whereas a lot of other ones will, accepted deadline 1 year, will expire, right? Yeah, this has no deadline. Anywho, into the VAB, the Vehicle Assembly Building. That was cool. Alright. So we got our command pod, and we're going to have Jebediah fly it. That should get him to 1 star. Oh yeah, by upgrading the VIB, you get something called action groups, which is cool, because you obviously can stage with the spacebar, gear with the G key, lights, RCS, SAS. So you can use these, and you can assign extra things to them, like to abort. What is it? I think at one point I built a space plane. I didn't have custom action groups, which will be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 keys across above the QWERTY keys. But these guys you could assign things. So you could, for the abort key, you could assign close air intake. But more about that later. For now, we want to get to orbit. So, we got a command pod, we got Jebediah in there. Let's slap a heat shield on the bottom of this. We've already been to orbit with some science. I don't really feel the need to take much more yet. Yeah, plus I want to get more of these guys before I go up there. I mean, the orbital telescope's cool looking, but no, we'll wait. I want to get more of these. Probably the next thing we'll unlock will be a little more sciencey. But I did say I would test the radial parachute, so we'll slap these guys on the side, and we can also slap a regular Mark 16, just because overkill is good. Overkill is good. Actually, something I'm actually going to add, just because we can, because it helps. Batteries. Batteries power things. And I got that, and I'm actually going to put 2, where are they? I don't know why it displays it on the back side of it. I think that's kind of backwards. We're going to put 2 of these guys, though. I don't want radial symmetry, because then that'll put one on both sides like that. I actually want... what is it? If you press the R key, yeah, that turns it that way. Asymmetry mirror mode versus radial, which is the two sides. We put it in mirror mode. Boop. So now we got a couple solar panels. They will charge up the battery. The battery largely is to help facilitate the reaction wheels. If you get to a certain point where you run out of all charge in the capsule and the battery, you cannot move your craft. You can't maneuver the craft, and you get stuck. So this is a good insurance. I've had that happen a few times where I've gotten to a point, I'm like, yeah, all right, next thing, and you realize, oh wait, I can't do anything because I have no more power, and you're just stuck in the orientation you are, and nothing goes anywhere. Alright, so we got our command capsule. All of that stuff is going to return. Like I said, no science, just want to get a dude up into orbit. We recently unlocked a few more fuel tanks, some of the bigger Rockamax versions, but for this, I actually want the FL T800 tank. Boom. And we're going to put a Terrier. It's small, but it's very efficient. Oop. It's, let's see, where is it? ISP. Vacuum 345 versus these guys, 320, 300. This guy's a bit more fuel efficient. Not as high a thrust, but more fuel efficient. So you actually get a little more kind of bang for your bucks. Bangs for your buck. Let's gonna get the Delta V stats out here. There we go. So we know with the Terrier, yeah, see how it's low, weak thrust? It's less than 1G. But once you're in space, that's not an insanely critical thing. So that's why, but the atmospheric, you'd get 794 versus, once you're orbital, you get 3,224 out of this guy. So that's a lot. This should be our final stage to get us circularizing our orbit. That being said, another stack decoupler. We're going to... let's see. I haven't built a smaller thing like this in a while. What does that do? 10, 50, 12? That's not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. Overall, that should be enough to get us into orbit, but you kick into these much quicker than you want to, and it's going to give you a low thrust for atmospheric, or low amount of delta V for atmospheric. So we're actually going to pull that to the side. We'll grab another one of these guys. Boom. And then toss this guy on the bottom. That's better. Still, and that's got a good thrust-to-weight ratio, so full throttle will get you up nicely. Overall, that's good. I like to overkill things a bit, though. So we're also, and my personal previous playthroughs, I've never been much for solid rocket boosters. Just never had much need for them. Is that? Yes. Never really had much need for them. Actually, we're going to put you up a little bit higher. But I'm trying more things. Now that I've got a lot more comfortable flying. See, those aren't actually... it's misleading. Those guys are actually attached to this. They're not attached to the radial decouplers, sadly. Because you'll see it when it... there. Oh, that's odd. That's why. It was on mirror symmetry. Anywho. Oh. I see. Rigid. There we go. Sorry. I've never really done much with solid rocket boosters. I've usually been like a straight up liquid fuel kind of guy, I guess. It gives you a little more control, but excuse me. But now that I've played through a lot and I understand a bit more, personally, I know what to look for thrust-to-weight ratios. So now I know that 1.89, that's not bad. I could limit this guy a little bit, but no, I like the full-on 1.89. We'll go with that. So we'll fire the solid rocket boosters, separate those guys, and then launch that guy. At that point, after these guys have fired for 42 seconds, yeah, we should be up nicely high to where this delta V is pretty correct. We're not gonna be feeling much atmospheric. These numbers should be really close to each other. This should get really close to that. It's actually not a bad little ship. I'm going to add. Aha! Yes. So we have some. We unlocked some more advanced aerodynamic pieces. So we got some tail fins. They articulate. If you look, along that line there, that tail fin wobbles and will help you with steering. Same with this guy. But we don't really need anything that aggressive. We'll go with the Delta Deluxe Winglet. It does give you control surfaces down at the bottom there. But that'll help us keep things aligned. The only steering we're going to have is up here in this guy. That's the only, well, obviously the winglets, but the only torquing is up here. This guy, was this a swivel? I think that was a swivel. So he will, yes, he will bevel and swing around as well and help, but it's not that much. Let's see, do I have, yes, strut connectors. Struts are a beautiful thing. Excuse me. Actually, first though, I want to add a nose cone. I want to add a nose cone onto those two to make them a little more aerodynamic. Not that we're going to be going that fast or crazy to make it insanely necessary. Boop. And sadly, these don't really lock into place as much as I would like. Boom. That'll keep these guys nice and square, in theory. Operating nice and not flexing and doing crazy things. And actually, I am going to add a few of these guys just for peace of mind. We're actually going to move this whole thing down a bit so it's not so ridiculously high at launch. Anywho, so yeah, solid rocket boosters, and then this stage lights. Poop, right? Yes. So one way, I've seen two ways this is done. You can land like this where you ignite and then break off your launch clamps. I've got plenty of thrust, so what I like to do is actually just move these guys into the same stage. That way they release and fire at the same time and you'll be away, especially with a healthy thrust-to-weight ratio like that. I mean, that's not stellar, but it's healthy. At 42 seconds, yeah. Yeah, this should get us into orbit. I mean, that looks like plenty of delta V, lots of atmospheric, so it's not too bad. So let's see. Orbital Mark 1. Let's see, we got a command capsule, we got Jebediah in there. Good. We got solar, we got power, we got parachutes. That's all going to come back. We're not going to do any science. Just want to get a dude up into orbit around the planet and bring him back down in one piece. He can do, what's it called? He can do crew reports. No EVAs, sadly, yet. I haven't upgraded that yet. And I'm just going to look at something really quick. Ooh, what time are we at? I'm curious, what is the cost? 850 versus... Oh, that's cool. Alright, good. Solid rocket boosters. Cheap way to go. This guy is cheaper than this engine. Yeah. 850 versus the swivel 1200 plus the fuel tanks on top of that. So, okay, solid rocket boosters. I'm going to have to make use of more solid rocket boosters. Anywho, I think we're ready to go. Double checking the staging. Yes and yes. Break those off after the 42 seconds. Ignite the swivel. Burn through those. Separate. Ignite the Terrier engine. Separate and eventually parachutes. Awesome. Yeah, Orbital Mark 1. Save and take it to the field to launch. Alright, so we're going to try this yet again. This is actually the third time, and I hope I didn't show you the rest. I've had to move the solar panels because they were here, but they were off balancing the ship. So I put 4 here. That should give us plenty of power, and then once we ditch it, we should be full up here. We won't need it anymore. We'll have plenty to return. I've also adjusted these guys. It's ideal, I believe-ish, to have the radio couplers toward the top, and then once you just decouple them, they'll fall back that way. The last time I launched, it was lower and it stayed closer, and it took out my engine at the base there. So that kind of sucked. Alright, full throttle, SAS on. Let's go Jebediah. Whew, alright, third time's the charm. Like I said, I haven't much worked with solid rocket boosters, so I'm not used to it. It's a little different performance, slightly different performance. But they're cheaper, so that's good. So once I get up to about 100 meters per second, I want to tip over to the east. I usually try to get about to a 10-degree angle. That way you're starting to move easterly. Yeah, easterly. You want to be going easterly because that's the way the planet is orbiting, and that gives you a orbital assist getting up into the orbit around the planet. So we're pushing over to about 10 degrees. We're going to start our gravity turn, basically. We're actually going to let it settle back right now on the prograde vector, which is fine. It's kind of where it wants to be. We want it to be prograde. You want to be going the direction, you want to be facing the direction you are traveling, so that when you ditch those guys, there it is, they fall off and go that away. So now my thrust ratio is just over 1G, so that's fine. We're still, oh good, now we got lots of control because we're pivoting there and gimbaling up here. We're at a good speed. When you're in the thicker atmosphere, you don't want to be going much faster than 300 meters per second. Not yet. Once you get going that fast, what am I trying to say? Sorry. If you get going that fast, you start fighting Mach effects, speed effects, wind effects, and it's not, you're just pushing against the air so much, it's not worth it. So this is being a little squirrely. I have to admit, I've been spoiled by playing the game for a while. I haven't been manually flying like this in a long time. You want to try to keep it more at like a 45-degree heading, but this guy's really fighting me for some reason. Anywho, we can see our apoapsis is 26 kilometers. Exiting the atmosphere, like we said, is at 70 kilometers. So we want to, I want to get it up to about 75 or 80, because you will still have some atmosphere to go through, and you will drop a little bit, but that'll give you time outside of the atmosphere to, to circularize your orbit. Oh, I didn't start a timer. Sorry guys, it's going to be a longer episode than I usually do. Upper atmosphere. No, not yet. Oop. Oh yeah, we're going nice and fast. We're starting to get a little bit of the heating effects as we are escaping the atmosphere, because we are leaving just the trail of the thicker stuff there. Oop, nope. That way. Oh, that stage is done. Now we fire the Terrier, which is a little weak, but it's not horrible. Oh, good. Okay, so our apoapsis is approaching 80, and we have a minute 45 to apoapsis. Normally, you'd have maneuver vectors, and you could play with things here, but there's another way to do it. Thank you, Quill18, for teaching me about this. You want to go to the horizon, and you're watching your timed apoapsis. You want to be careful not to press the spacebar key. I've done that a few times in my early times, but if you press the X key, brings your throttle to 0, Z key, full throttle. As you can see, the timed apoapsis is climbing still, and the apoapsis itself is still climbing. So you want to wait. You want to wait a bit. Oh, I totally stopped the timer. Oh well. Aha, we are in space. So we got about a minute. Okay, we can see our time to apoapsis is dropping. That's fine. Our periapsis is going from a negative number to a positive number, which is good. Prograde. Ah, time to apoapsis is slowing its countdown, and these numbers are going a little better. And this should, yeah, there it goes. So it's turning around again. So now you're actually pushing your apoapsis up and out a little more, which isn't necessarily ideal, but it's okay. It's not going that crazy. This is dropping much quicker, or your periapsis is rising much quicker. We can go out here. So you can see I'm pushing the apoapsis away a bit and circularizing our orbit. Yeah. So I'm actually going to throttle down. I don't want this to rise too much, and that'll rise that too much, and it's not that terribly fuel efficient. Yeah, I think if you can kind of get this guy to stay stable, that's okay. Let's go back out to the map. Okay, oh, that's the dark side. So that's increasing again, but that's decreasing, so that's awesome. So we're going to cut all throttle by pressing X. Oh, that's not bad. I still have, what, 2/3 of the fuel in there? Yay. Good, electric charge. Oh, I should have got rid of the monopropellant. Just unused gunk sitting there. I'm going to wait till this gets down to about 45 seconds, and then we'll punch it at full throttle again. See, and then it's rising again, which is okay, not the end of the world. I don't really want the apoapsis to get much more than 100. I don't think it will. Yeah, we'll get this nice and circularized. Map. Yep, see? We're going to see our periapsis pop out boop, of the surface on the other side in just a few seconds. And at this point, yeah, you're going to push your apoapsis away from you. There it is. There's our periapsis. And we just want to get that up above 70K. 70 kilometers. I mean, or 70,000 meters. But now you'll see it'll swap around, and my periapsis will come where I am, or get closer to me. And there we go. We are now in a stable orbit around the planet Kerbal, with no risk of falling back to the planet. That's all it needs, as long as both the apoapsis, which is the point furthest from the planet, I guess, the highest point in your orbit, and the periapsis, the lowest point in your orbit, as long as those are both above 70, you're not going to hit the atmosphere, you're not going to go back in, and you can chill in orbit for as long as you like. Oh. And we got some milestones. Yay! A milestone. We entered orbit, some money, science, and reputation. And we completed a contract. Lots of money, more science, and actually a lot of reputation. Awesome. So I think that's it for this little episode. It went a little bit longer than I intended because I had those snafus with ship design and initial ship launch. Like I said, solid rocket boosters aren't my forte, but I want to try to incorporate them a bit more because they're cheap. Next episode, we will deorbit, and I'll see what else shows up after that. Thanks for watching. If you hit like, hit subscribe, all those things. And I will catch you later.